Why, hello everybody.
Hello.
Greetings.
And welcome to another episode of Disillusioned Plays, where we play the games and do the voices. Except this time we're not going to be playing the game.
We're not doing like either of those, really.
Well, we are doing voices,
Well, we
our
are.
own.
No, yes.
But we're not
Not
playing.
put on.
Yes, but we're not going to be playing any games. No, this time we're actually going to try and give you the Q&A again.
This is not the second time we've recorded.
At least the
all.
second.
At least the second.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yes. For those of you who are like, yes, we would love to see the original 3-hour version. No, you wouldn't.
No.
No, you wouldn't.
No.
You
There's
really wouldn't.
Just rambling, answering the same question over and over again, and just the sheer like. So we thought it was going to be something that was like, oh yeah, we'll bang it out in an hour, it'll be fine. And then it was like 3 hours later.
Just like the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog.
And so,
yeah, typical Disillusioned Plays. We drew it out for a lot longer than it should have been.
and so with that, this is a slightly more condensed version of that,
Slightly.
an attempt to, and hopefully will be a little bit less rambly. Not like this intro. And with that, we'll hop on in.
We will.
Andre the Turtle asks, what was some of the keystone media of your childhoods, i.e. video games, movies, music, cartoons, etc., like pieces of media that shape who you were?
Oof.
Oh, good.
Oh, now you're asking. We're going
So-
back a few years
Just
here.
a bit. So I mean, I feel like...
I've aged.
I'm old and witty.
So I feel like for me, one of the most important things, like at least film franchises that I absolutely love, is like The Lord of the Rings, like the original sort of Peter Jackson trilogy. Just absolutely amazing. I held off watching those for the longest time because I was a Harry Potter nerd. But then I watched those and I was like, oh my god, why didn't I watch these sooner? Like now I'm one of those people who will only ever watch the extended cuts and that's it.
Hell yeah.
The Metal Gear Solid franchise, especially Metal Gear Solid 3, was super important to me. I am super excited for the fact they've announced a redo of Metal Gear 3 and they're going to bring them out on PC. I can't
Yeah,
wait
boy.
to play again. Final Fantasy franchise, especially the music. Love the music. Like,
Yes,
always listen to
so
that
good.
stuff. And like with Final Fantasy, it's an interesting one because like as a kid I was always into Pokemon. My friends had Pokemon. We didn't really have much money growing up, so we used to maybe kind of emulate games on PC a bit, which is
Naughty boy.
I mean, I own them all now, but anyway, so...
I made up for it later
But yeah,
years.
so I remember downloading this one game that was kind of like Pokemon, except that you were like this Dark Knight who was the captain of the Red Wings, and it was Final Fantasy IV. And I remember thinking that was like really, really cool, and then I ended up just like, I got the rest of those SNES games and loved them. And then I guess like Newgrounds Flash cartoons like Egoraptor, Harry Partridge. Oh, I think I do.
No, it hasn't.
And of course Blackadder. Blackadder was
Oh,
amazing.
Blackadder's amazing.
Harry Partridge has aged well. The Egoraptor ones, we watched one the other day and we're like, oh dear.
No.
Yeah, it's not good.
I know, like, yeah, Metal Gear Awesome. Oh, it's not as good as it was.
No.
So for me, my first kind of anime movie that I ever watched, because I'm a huge weeb. I don't think that's news to anyone, but
That's why we love you.
the first anime I ever saw was Princess Mononoke when I was like 6.
Six?
Which don't show that movie to 6-year-olds. Not.
No, probably not a
Jesus
good idea.
Christ! That's nightmare fuel.
I did love the movie regardless, but yeah, there were bits in it that spooked me. But I loved Princess Mononoke, and that kind of started off my kind of deep and abiding love of, anime and Japanese culture and everything else.
Yeah.
In the same vein, Spirited Away was another big one.
Yeah.
That was one that kind of came out when, we still went to the beach regularly, and so I would always watch it when I was at the beach, and it was just a really kind of memorable part of my childhood. Moving on from that, what kind of started me wanting to do voices to begin with was the movie Master of Disguise, which is an excellent movie that should have been nominated for every Oscar.
No.
That featured Dana Carvey wasn't annoying at all. And I, as a kid, I insisted on watching it like 50 times. And so we rented it a bunch of times when you still went into physical locations to rent movies. Yes. And I would always do the same voices that Dana Carvey did, and that kind of started me off in being interested in doing like voice acting. And in the same vein, when I was a little bit older, Team Fortress 2 and Dota 2 were huge because they were so character focused. They're so character focused, and they have like such a wide variety of voices to them. And so I was also trying to imitate those. Who touched my gun?
Who touched Sasha? Indeed. So my family was a bit like, ew, games. So I was a little bit late to the party on it, but I did play the living bejesus out of Crash Bandicoot 3. Whooped. Loved that game so much. Played it for absolute hours. So kind of me was kind of drawing. I drew a lot. I'd draw like literally if there was a piece of paper, I'd draw on it. So
or
it was
even
like,
the bed sheets.
That was when I was 2 with lipstick. Okay?
But I mean,
leave me alone.
She caught the bug at a young age.
I did. But also, like, at the same time, watching, like, old, like, British comedy shows, I will be surprised if people know of this one. The main one that I'd watch with, like, my dad and granddad was Last of the Summer Wine, and I'd just be sat there drawing, but also could tell you what was happening on the screen at the same time as being buried in a piece of paper with a crayon. And I guess the other main one for me was Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, I was obsessed. Absolutely obsessed.
I remember at school you were pretty obsessed.
If there was a piece of novelty tat, I had it. I think I read the first book like 15 times and knew the first page off by heart at some point, so I was a tiny bit obsessed.
Brendan asks, what is your biggest video game flex or proudest accomplishment related to gaming? So I feel like for this one, there's just like I've just only got like a couple. One of them was beating Castlevania Symphony of the Night and getting the 200.6.
That was it.
That
was it, yeah.
Completion, which is really, really weird. Yeah, I remember that being absolutely amazing because I remember.
Blew your mind, if I recall.
Well, I remember finishing the game and being like, "Oh, that was quite short." And then I was talking to someone about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, you need to do this certain. You need to like equip these certain things and go into this certain room at this certain time." And when you do that, it sort of reveals the true boss at that point, and then it unlocks this whole flipping upside down castle, and it's like, what the hell? There's like the whole half of the game still to go. It was incredible. That and the other thing was, I used to so I mentioned before, I love Metal Gear Solid. I used to try and play them on the hard difficulties, and I remember completing MGS4 on European Extreme, which was like, holy crap. Like the fist fight stuff at the end, the sort of fighting game stuff, and just getting bitch slapped by Ocelot so many times.
As opposed to now, where it would be Metal Gear Solid Brexit Extreme.
If you were here, Taylor, I would punch you.
No, we don't want a fist fight between you two.
No, with the Metal Gear theme in the background.
Yeah.
on top of like flipping Arsenal gear. Yep.
Yeah, so mine are probably not that epic, but they're kind of more personal achievements for me. So again, I'm going to go back to Crash Bandicoot 3. So I remember my tiny teenage brain was blown when I ran the time trial for Toad Village. And I got a platinum relic. I did not know this was a thing. I didn't have any walkthroughs or anything. You know, it's back when dial-up was a freaking thing. Yeah, and it was like there was, normal, gold, platinum. Oh, well, it turns out there was platinum, and I was trying to run for the gold, and then it went to a platinum. I was like, oh my God, and then I lost my mind. I never got any more, but just like, to me, I was like, yeah, I'm happy. I did a thing. I beat your ass. And I guess my other one was I 100% completed Assassin's Creed 2. I never want to see the feathers ever again. And it netted you a cloak that made you notorious permanently. Wherever you went.
Yeah.
So it was like,
It's
great.
It's like, yes. Hey, look at that asshole with the cape made out of feathers. Get him!
I wish it was made out of feathers. That would have been
No,
hilarious.
it wasn't. It wasn't. That was the thing. It wasn't.
It wasn't. But yeah, that's mine.
So
hardcore gamer over here, by the way.
I was going to try to say it in a more tactful way, but my thing is like, differently than Pete and Sarah, I tend to be more of a hardcore gamer.
Yeah, that's me.
You done? You done? You done with the slander over here? And so I will usually play relatively hard games or harder difficulties and whatever else. So for me, the first Souls game I ever played was Bloodborne, and I platinumed that one. Beat the DLC, beat the Orphan of Kos, beat all of that, and that was actually the Chalice dungeons where it's like they halved your health and doubled enemy damage. That one was fun. But yeah, so I platinumed that, basically did everything there was to do in Bloodborne. Still remains one of my favorite games to this day. When Shadowbringers was towards the end, like before Endwalker was out in Final Fantasy XIV, I went back through and did all of the extreme trials in Shadowbringers and got the little dragon Gwibber mount from each of them.
Oh my god.
And when you've gotten all of those mounts, you then unlock a very cool mount, which is basically a giant mecha dragon with missiles on it and everything else.
Wow.
And so,
That's sick.
yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
One day, guys. One day.
One day.
So I'm hoping to do the same in Endwalker, but yeah, so I was able to get all of those in Shadowbringers before the Endwalker expansion came out, so I was pretty proud of that.
Nice.
And then also I beat every boss in Elden Ring. I haven't platinumed it because I haven't gotten every ending, but I beat like Melania, I beat all of them. But in addition to that,
Taylor is actually known as Let Me Solo Her on the front. No.
I can only aspire to that level of greatness. No, but then we've referenced this in the Disillusioned Plays episodes a couple of times, but another personal point of pride was at the beginning of the game, there's this boss called the Tree Guardian. You know, you walk out, it's this giant guy on a horse, clad in armor, and the idea of this boss is that it's supposed to teach you that, you know, certain enemies can be gone around. Right? Like, if you're having trouble, you can go around the enemy and come back later. No. I didn't do that.
Not for Taylor.
That guy had never met Taylor before, yeah.
And so I ran my face into the meat grinder, what probably was like 30 times, but I beat him without leveling up, without getting anything else, and when I beat him, I was very glad. And then I couldn't use the weapon that dropped because my stats weren't high enough.
If there's a lesson to be learned there, everybody.
Yeah. I'm going to throw in like a collective one very, very quickly.
Yes.
The Sagira shell from Destiny 2 for all years.
Oh, yeah.
Brother frickin' Vance and his Radiolarian cultures. I'm glad he got nuked when Mercury disappeared.
When the darkness consumed the galaxy. Yeah, so
Go away.
that one was kind of crazy as well because it was one of those where you couldn't just sort of grind it out. You had to do it over time. You could only you could only do so many of his like little quests per day, and every time you did one, you would like unlock a pointless weapon on this sort of. He had like a clock face for like 12 weapons and stuff, and each one of them was just crap because it was old. And then eventually we got the Sagira shell, and it was just before everything was vaulted, and we
had a tight time limit to get it as well. We were burnt out, but
very, very happy. And I will never.
That was a time where it's like we were literally logging on to Destiny every day, and they're 5 hours ahead.
Yeah.
So it was like I get home from work, we would log on to Destiny, grind at the Radiolarian cultures, get the friggin' box, and then move on. And then every single time we'd have to listen to Vance talk about how he wanted to inhale Osiris's dong, and it got old pretty quick.
It's like, Vance, keep your fantasies to yourself, dude.
Right. Blake the Ginger asks, how did you all meet each other?
Oh no. You want to know about that?
Don't know the
do you?
secrets.
Well, I guess I'll chime in first because, like, obviously with Taylor, it's kind of was through sort of Pete.
Well, we're gonna get to that.
No, I know, but I was gonna say I'll let you boys elaborate on that.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of do like me and Pete first because we've been together for quite a long time, known each other for quite a while, just a couple of years.
What?
So me and Pete met in secondary school. We became friends. Like he like moved to our school. We sort of got to know each other, and then sort of like sort of friends, but kind of didn't really talk until we kind of in the last year of like secondary school.
I distinctly remember like skiving off PE, physical education classes, because we used to hate that, and I remember like. We would sort of like do whatever we could to kind of get out of those classes, and I seem to remember like I'd occasionally I'd meet up with you, and we would do like silly voices and stuff.
Yeah.
and that was kind of our sort of foray.
Our little sort of get together. And sort of just before we left school, we got together, as you might be aware, if it wasn't obvious, we are a couple. We are married.
We are actually married.
Wait, you are?
Wait, you've not known all this time?
and yeah, we actually live together. So I mean, that's
Yep.
That's
The
why
scandal.
That's why Sarah will occasionally refer to me as darling instead of Pete.
Shocking. We held hands.
I know.
The most scandalous.
The most forbidden of acts. So
you
then,
get cooties that way.
That's true.
But then-
he's
so-
not died yet, so he's.
so in terms of like meeting Taylor, I think it kind of came round from, wasn't it like an online matchmate thing randomly in, God, what game was it?
It was Portal 2. It was Portal 2.
God.
Yes.
Yeah, like it was just after it had come out, and
Yes.
you know, there was that co-op puzzle-solving
Yes.
mode.
Yes, there
yes.
was.
Pete and I got a match made together. Now, we didn't do voice chat at the time because we
No.
were both like, oh, online strangers. But we,
Yeah. So
we were able to.
which, as you can imagine, made the whole puzzle solving element quite difficult.
Yeah, how the hell did you
so-
manage that?
There's
No.
like gestures
Well,
and
we
stuff
did the
in game.
time-honored tradition of jumping up and down to communicate where we wanted the portals to go.
Yes.
And so, you know, we wound up solving a bunch of the puzzles together, and we eventually added each other on Steam. We got pretty close to the end, but we never actually beat it, as I recall.
And I think that's when I kind of, I started to get like a bit of I kind of got back into Minecraft at some point.
Oh god, yeah.
And I think it was around
Yes.
then I sort of ended up like dragging you guys into that and into our sort of server and whatnot,
Yes.
where we would. Well, I mean, the idea was we were supposed to finish the game, and then got distracted with like making redstone stuff, like making
That doesn't
automatic
sound like
doors,
us.
And Taylor got obsessed with the idea of like leading the Arctic foxes from like the next flipping continent
Oh,
over
yeah.
and all that sort of
I make
stuff.
no apology for that.
Yeah.
I would
No,
do it again.
Yep.
but then, like-
would recommend.
At some point in there, though, Sarah decided that she wants for us to do like a voice chat together. She wants to
Yeah.
know who this elusive American guy who we were sort of associating with sounded. She wants to know what he sounded like, and so we all hopped on a voice chat, and awkwardly, none of us spoke until and all that.
Hello.
But eventually,
And then I let off with, hello.
that's not true. That's not true. But then, so anyway, so we got off with the voice chat element, and then we.
Oh dear!
You know what I mean? Stop it. And then we started playing, so I kind of got Taylor into like Elite Dangerous. I remember specifically trying to do like the deep core mining mechanic, which was super cool because you'd like blow up asteroids to try and get like treasure and stuff. But I remember like Sarah not so happy about that because we'd be in a wing, which is where you sort of group up with multiple people. And there was a glitch that was supposed to be fixed for a long time and then wasn't, where you would basically only the party leader would get the stuff. Like when you blow up the asteroid, the various minerals and whatnot would only appear for the party leader. For everyone else, it'd just be like there's nothing there.
Hours wasted for nothing.
So yeah, and it's not like finding an asteroid with the relevant materials, which I think it was low temperature diamonds was one,
Yes.
and like void opals.
Oh god, yeah.
Oh,
void-
yeah.
Trying to find those is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. You would be
Yup.
looking for frickin' ages. You felt like a proper trucker. Anyway, so yes, it was that, and then around there we kind of got into Destiny 2,
Yes.
and so we would like play, and I think we mentioned that in the previous question. We would like play it for absolutely ages. So that
I would
was
get mocked relentlessly for wanting to farm exotics.
for
Taylor wanted
and
the
for
shiny.
yeah, there was a mission in particular that was quite funny where there was a lot of decoy exotics, and Taylor would pick up every single one, and every single one would explode in his face.
Shut up!
Couldn't understand why you kept dying.
Because Taylor is like a magpie. But anyway, so we also got into Tabletop Simulator because
Yes.
Sarah and I are into board games, and Taylor is sort of into board games as well. I'm sure he'll elaborate in a bit.
Yes.
And so Tabletop Simulator was a way for us to potentially play games together. So we played like some Arkham Horror and Descent and stuff, and Magic. That was quite fun. We spent a lot of time doing that.
I never annoyed Pete by grabbing random game objects and then slowly hitting the
and
plus
flipping the
button.
table.
Flipping the
I
table.
never ever had to disable the flip table feature at all, ever.
And then we draw boobies on the game board.
Yes. Real mature guys. So then we also so in a kind of like I guess the original origin of like Disillusioned Plays, what kind of initially sort of started like you know the original what's the word, the inception of the idea perhaps,
Yes.
was Sarah and I had played an FMV game that we quite enjoyed called like Contradiction Spot the Liar. like Inspector Jenks and whatnot,
Jenks.
which was good fun. And we were like,
It's mean anything to you if I did this?
yeah. But
You
anyway,
need to watch it to get the
we'll
reference.
see. But anyway, we were looking at like FMV games, and I remember seeing one that was just like, oh my god, what the hell? And it's about this guy, Richard LaRuina, and his whole thing
that
about
guy.
picking up women. And it was, ugh. And we
God.
played. We sort of played it. We did
Yeah.
not pay for that game. I do not feel bad. Sue me,
No.
please don't sue me. But I. Yeah, we played that game
God.
and like, God, it's awful.
That fucking guy.
But then we transitioned to a game called The Shapeshifting Detective, which is
Yes.
this kind of like mystery game, but it's an FMV game. But then the killer is like a different person each time, which I thought was quite interesting. So it's not like the best game, but it was interesting. But then after doing that, we were like, well. So Sarah and I were like, well, we really like Ace Attorney. Taylor hadn't played Ace Attorney, and it was, I think around that time, was released on various consoles and Steam and whatnot. Like they re-released the HD trilogy, and we were like, we should totally play Ace Attorney like this.
Yeah.
And so we did, and we sort of showed Taylor that.
Yes. It will be
And that
covered
was the
much
beginning
later.
of the end.
And and that leads nicely into Shuey Lights asks, how did you guys originally get into Ace Attorney? So, from my point of view, I saw the TV commercials for it, and I remember hating how it looked. I remember seeing this like woman in a library tapping on a DS, and it shows you these like lawyers on the screen. And I'm just like, who on earth would ever want to play a court game? That just sounds like the most rubbish thing ever. Like, let me keep my Mario and Pokemon and Zelda, please, thank you. And then I was at college, and a friend of mine suggested like checking it out, and obviously I was a bit older, a bit wiser, and so I was like, okay, fine, and I loved it and never looked back.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't know anything about it, so mainly mine's literally through Pete. I know
And that's
it's boring answer, but yeah, but I'm glad he did, because I absolutely adore it.
Yeah.
I sadly haven't played all of the games yet, but I'm sure we will get round to it in our sweet mystical time.
I was going to say, I mean, you know, we've got plenty of time. There's
got
plenty of
plenty of
games to
time.
get to, and we run a YouTube channel. So.
By 2030.
Yeah. When we're
So
dead.
I got exposed to it through Pete and Sarah. You know, I'd always been aware of the Ace Attorney games being so steeped in meme culture as I am.
A boot to the head.
But
and all
I'd
that.
never actually played them. Like, instead of playing Ace Attorney on the Game Boy Advance, I was playing like Bow Tie and stuff. But when they suggested doing it, I was like, yeah, you know, I've always heard that it was interesting, and I thought it would be worth a shot. And yeah, I'm glad that we did, because
Yeah.
it's been I would say now I'm a huge fan of it.
Well, and then that's what also kind of started. So as I mentioned before, that's what kind of started us doing the channel stuff, because we started. It's text only, and there's no voices at all except for the objection sort of sound. And so we were like,
Most of the
oh,
later ones have cutscenes now.
And so we were like, let's voice the characters. We'll all do silly voices. And they were much sillier back then. We weren't quite so serious. And
No.
and that's what kind of like started this whole sort of channel. So, and we'll get onto that.
Yeah.
Wakari Masen, I think. Did you have training in voice acting, or when did you start voice acting?
So I've gotten some coaching in voice acting, and I did like a whole program through Edge Studio to get like a professional demo made and receive coaching through that. So I've worked with June Yoon and August Sargenti, both of whom are really cool people and really great coaches. I've made a demo, and I've gotten a couple of professional spots for Deborah Dalton, who hosts a cool sci-fi podcast called Dark Kingdom Arts. But I started doing voices when I was like 5 years old, and talking about friggin' Master of Disguise. The other one was The Emperor's New Groove. Was my friend Charles and I memorized every line of that movie, and we're doing the voices from start to finish, and that would just be how we whiled away the hours. Again, did the same thing with Master of Disguise, Team Fortress 2, and Dota 2. So really, since I was like 6.
Oh, wow.
God help my parents.
Okay. Yeah, so me, not really. Not the voice acting part. Mine was mainly stage acting. It kind of started back from our drama department decided to set up again just before I left secondary school, and they did a production of Oliver, and I'm like, well, I'm leaving hell, why not? Let's give it a shot. And I got the role as Nancy, because they did Oliver. And after that, I was kind of like, oh, maybe this could be quite fun. I kind of like doing like the voices and sort of being another person and sort of getting into that role. So I did it at college. I did performing arts acting at college. I did join an amateur dramatics group, like sort of in between after finishing college and sort of in between like looking for full-time work after I'd finished. But I ended up sort of being a bit typecasted, and I was kind of a little bit kind of bored of that. And kind of work got in the way as well, so it was difficult to kind of keep up with that. I had thought about like voice acting, but it kind of didn't come to fruition. Just kind of, life got in the way, and I just kind of lost my confidence with it all, and it kind of got left by the wayside, and then literally haven't picked anything up until like literally starting Disillusioned Plays. It's kind of been a long time. But yeah, predominantly stage acting for me.
As for me, I'd say like absolutely nothing at all. I mean, the only sort of stint of acting I've ever done is, so as Sarah mentioned about the whole the Oliver play thing.
You were
I actually was in there. I actually was in that as well, briefly. And I was like this sort of drunken guy who owned the like establishment that Nancy worked at. And I remember I have a distinct memory of like going against the teachers because they were all they were really strict about like, no, you must do this and whatnot. And they were obviously very busy. And I was like, no, I want to. I'm supposed to be like a drunken guy, so I want to, instead of saying ladies and gentlemen, I want to say Jadies and Lentilmen. And they were like, no, don't change the script. And I'm like, well, on the night,
He did it anyway.
I don't care. And yeah, I do remember. I think I did the drunken thing quite convincingly because I remember actually falling over people at one point as well. And so it just probably really sold it.
I seem to recall you nearly fell out your chair that you were sat
Yeah,
in.
I mean, it was supposed to be like it was partially intentional, but it kind of went a little bit further than intended. So other than that, I mean, yeah. So I've always been more into like the sort of editing sort of process, really. I did like to do impressions of characters from stuff. I mean, like obviously I mentioned before about the Metal Gear, so like Hein D. Colonel, what's a Russian gunship doing here? Or, liquid! And so, brother! And like, revolver. And all that sort of stuff. I used to like doing that
That's
sort of
why I fell
stuff.
in love with him.
But, yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much me there.
So you heard it here first. If you wanna meet up with a girl, you just walk up to her and go, revolver.
That's it.
Not quite that, but like,
Every time.
Works every time.
Yeah, just silly impressions from films and games, and it just made me laugh.
Like,
so.
I used to be able
You
to...
do better with that than following Richard LaRue's advice.
Oh God, yeah.
God.
Screw that guy.
I used to... Well, don't screw that guy.
Actually, yeah,
But
don't do that.
I mean, I used to be able to... Like,
Yeah.
I used to be able to, like, quote pretty much, like, all of Shrek 2 at one point.
Oh God, yes, you did.
Because I used to watch, like, videos on VHS, those big lumpy tapes.
I can feel the grey
I used to
hairs.
watch the whole thing, rewind it, watch the whole thing, rewind. And so yeah, like that was kind of my thing.
Lord,
But,
I've aged a bit then.
but yeah. Gokurono, sorry if I mispronounce. I'm sorry.
We're sorry.
005 asks, what is each of your favorite games? So for me, as I sort of hinted earlier on with like Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy, but so like Shadow of the Colossus is probably my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Like really fucking good game.
Yeah.
Pardon my French. But yeah, as I said, Metal Gear Solid, like particularly 3. I also was really fond of the Twin Snakes, the remake of the first one
you
on
were.
GameCube. That they sort of seem to. There's been no remakes, there's been no re-releases, nothing. They said it was a bit cheesy and whatnot, but I love that game. It was so good. And Final Fantasy, and I would say that Final Fantasy 6 and Final Fantasy 12 are probably my favorites. 9's pretty good as well. And we're currently playing 14. And obviously 16's coming out soon, so that'll be interesting, that'll be fun. Whatever, I should probably hand the reins to someone else.
Go on then, I'll get mine out of the way. So I like sort of a long haul game, so I like open world games, RPG games. So some of my favorites are Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely love that game.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that game. Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. I do like both of them. Red Dead 2 was definitely like just the story of that is an emotional roller coaster. The Persona games, I particularly like 4 and 5. I've completed them. I've completed 3, 4, and 5, and 5 Royale as well. Put a lot of hours
And Strikers as well.
and Strikers, yeah. I forgot about Strikers. Yeah. So 1 or 2 hours. Okami, such a beautiful game. Love Okami. I do like the Final Fantasy series. Obviously, we all play 14, but I quite like 9.
Yeah, 9 is fun.
And seven's like another one that I've played most of as well. I was a fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise until it just became Creed, because the Assassins has kind of gone out the window. Thanks, Ubisoft.
No, it didn't even become Creed. It became Ubisoft game.
Well,
it
yes,
became the Ubisoft game.
Yeah, so it kind of it's a little bit of a dampened spirit on that one, but yeah, that's kind of like my main sort of few I can think of.
So, I mean, some of mine are the same as Sarah's. Like, Persona 4 and 5 were huge. Yeah. Persona 4 was my first foray into Persona. Mm-hmm. I played that one to absolute buggery. Like, I was so addicted to that game, I would wake up like an hour before school to play it before I went, because I was just like, I was more interested in the virtual school life than I was in my actual school life.
I mean, understandable.
Persona 5, I had a huge amount of fun with, and it was unironically what got me started doing pour over coffee, actually. Was because
yes, it was!
Oh, God.
Yes, it was. I remember you saying.
And so, yeah, Persona 5 is definitely one of my favorites. Then Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne, big
Souls
games. Yeah. Final Fantasy 14, I've got 1 or 2 hours in
only
in
1
that
or 2.
Thousands.
Definitely don't have a couple thousand hours in that. Same with Warframe, only have 1 or 2 hours in there.
You barely play it.
Taylor likes 1 or 2 games very much.
No, he's only played 1 or 2 hours.
Okami, again, just a beautiful game in the same sort of visual vein. Beautiful Joe was another one I was a big fan of. And then Mabinogi. That was like one of the first like Korean MMOs I really got into, like after MapleStory and everything else, before I played World of Warcraft. Huh. And that was the first one that I logged over 1,000 hours in.
Jesus.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
Don't judge me.
No, I'm not judging you.
No.
Like, don't say I can't say anything. I dread to think how many hours I've put in the Sims over the years.
Well, yeah. Skyrunner Blake asks, what made the 3 of you decide to start this channel? So, so I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's weird, like, obviously the AI has become like a big thing at the moment, and and it's kind of like it's taking jobs, it's doing it. But like before that, there was kind of like so obviously ChatGPT is popular. Before ChatGPT, which I think uses like GPT 3 or 4 or some shit, I don't know. There was GPT-2. And, and there was this like online site, I forget what it was, that allowed you to like put some text and you could be like, write me a story or something like that. And I was sort of fidgeting around with these, and it would come out with this really weird, like bastardized English, like messed up stuff. And we were like, but it was kind of good enough that it was almost convincing, but not, but you knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
And so we were like, it'd be really funny if we made this into like, we made like a podcast out of this. It's like Disillusioned Stories You Don't Want to Hear.
That was it.
Like
Yeah.
And we sort of we initially did one of those, although admittedly it kind of didn't really go anywhere in the end. We didn't really do much with it.
I remember the one with the weather report.
And like the how to relax and all that as well. Yeah. And then so that was kind of that. We have so the name obviously sort of comes from that. We sort of decided we were going to start this YouTube channel, and it kind of came about with helping Taylor with his confidence, really. So Taylor,
that's the main one.
Taylor's kind of been wanting to become a professional voice actor, and is in the sort of the process of that, but at the time was like, I don't really like it. I'm sort of too nervous about putting anything out there. And so we were like, well, why don't we were already playing Ace Attorney together. We were doing silly voice to each other, and we were like, well, maybe some other people would enjoy our silly banter. I mean, we watch some other stuff on YouTube and whatnot, or I listen to some silly podcasts and whatnot, and it just seems to be like people mucking about and having a laugh. And I was like, well, we could do something like that. That might be quite fun. But then also it would serve to get Taylor's voice out there.
Yeah, sort of get him out there in the...
And it was on the heels, because there was a Pro ZD video that had come out, where it's like he had just posted something about becoming a voice actor, like tips for becoming a voice actor, like never ask me these questions about being a voice actor again. One of those, some title like that. But in that video, he talked about how one of the things that helped him was being a content creator and regularly kind of putting stuff out there.
Yeah.
And so when Pete had suggested it, I was like, I was nervous about it because, at the time, I don't like the sound of my own voice. I don't think anyone else would listen to it.
And nothing's changed there, Taylor, has it? Let's be honest.
Well, I'm less vocal about it.
Well, yeah, a little bit less.
That was
we still have to tell you off.
Yes. Sometimes, not as often, but sometimes we have to say,
He's getting,
you are good.
He is getting better at it.
Yes.
But I have gotten professional work since we started. So really it had kind of accomplished the goal. The goal.
Yeah.
Right, because it was good practice. It was good practice, and also, I love these two guys to death. And it was just
for some reason these bumbling Brits.
But and then just to sort of mention, I guess the name of the channel, like the whole Disillusioned Plays thing, it came from the whole Disillusioned Stories You Don't Want to Hear, and partially because we're kind of a bit, we've got a bit older, we're not sort of happy teenagers anymore.
A bit jaded
we
to
have
life.
generally become somewhat disillusioned with life. But at the same time, it's like this kind of serves as like a bit of an escape, right? It's sort of the idea of embracing sort of whimsy and fun and whatnot.
Well, two of the three of us embrace whimsy.
Pete is the most serious one of the three
well,
of us.
someone's got to keep everything on track, haven't they?
That's true. Someone's got to keep the children in check.
That's it. Skyrim Blake also asks, how have you felt about it as the channel has grown over time?
Ooh.
So I think all of us we feel pretty inspired, honestly.
Yeah.
And grateful.
Kind of surprised that it's kind of grown the way it has. It's kind of surreal a little bit.
Absolutely. And obviously happy.
Yes, obviously.
Initially we hoped that people would enjoy our sort of silly banter and whatnot, and then just sort of seeing that number grow over time is sort of proves that is that we have that you have enjoyed what we've put out there, which is great. I mean, there've been some sort of minor changes to the sort of the way that we've sort of delivered the videos and whatnot, which you will be able to see if you watch our previous content.
Don't watch Charles Jimmy.
I wouldn't recommend it.
It's awful.
I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, it's interesting, and I guess part of the reason we haven't gotten rid of it is because it does kind of serve as a sort of an interesting reference to go back to and just see how we've changed over time. And
yeah, if we ever feel like we haven't progressed, we can just go back and watch the first one. We're like, oh dear.
Okay, maybe a little bit.
Absolutely. But I mean, but anyway, regardless of some of the changes that we've made, which have generally just been about the way that we kind of just trying to sort of keeping things moving mostly, and sort of
apart from the intros.
Well, I mean, no. To be honest, the intros have gone through some changes too.
I know.
But we've just sort of we've tried to sort of keep the original dynamic and formula that we've sort of had the whole time of generally just keeping this sort of warm, cozy atmosphere, and just sort of come across as some friends shooting the shit, as it were.
Just talking shit most of the time.
Yeah.
But reading the script as well.
Yeah.
The thing for me, when we started out, we were kind of even if this just stays as a sort of a small community, we'd be happy with that. We were kind of, we wanted to support our friend.
Yeah.
So it would obviously was beneficial if it did grow, but it was kind of reading some of the comments and people saying, you've brightened my day, you've made me smile. Oh my God, I was laughing my ass off for on this bit. It's just really nice to kind of read that, and even if it still was just smaller, a smaller community than what we have now, we were happy with that. If we could bring a smile to someone's face, we were we've achieved what we want. This part of this we've achieved.
Just to be a sort of a bit of content that people watch regularly, when you've got a creator that you enjoy that you watch once a week or whatever, and it's their next video is coming out, I'm going to sit down and watch that, and they enjoy that. To have that is just seemed like a really rewarding idea.
Yeah, and then also kind of with Taylor, as he's mentioned, he's managed to get some professional work out of it. It's nice that he's built his confidence, and he's got that, and it's I
think out of his confidence, I don't know if this specifically has got
I mean, but it's given him a push to kind of do Obviously, feel free to put in Taylor if I feel like I'm
Please
speaking.
do.
No, it really has, and it's like the general skills of being able to look at a character, because I mean that's part of what you need to do in order to be able to audition or whatever, is be able to look at a character and kind of quickly, create a voice for them.
Yeah.
And this entire series has been really good practice, just kind of doing that, but also just getting me feeling more relaxed in the booth and everything else. But yeah, I mean, we all kind of feel the same way about it in that respect. But like as an aspiring professional voice actor, it really does fill me with a lot of joy to see, when people talk about, enjoying certain performances or enjoying certain aspects of the performance. It just kind of, it gives me the dopamine release. It gives me a little bit of, it warms my heart a little bit because, being able to kind of put that aspect of yourself out there and kind of have people respond well to it is always nice. Or, in the case of Nagito, have people have a very visceral response, which still makes you feel like you're doing a good job.
And also somewhat uncomfortable.
You could say that, I failed the task successfully.
Okay, so David asks, what channels did you take the most influence from in terms of the way that you structure and edit your content and your approach to comedy and commentary in videos?
Hello, everybody. My name is Markiplier, and welcome back to Five Nights at Frombo's. Bye-bye. No, I've watched so much Markiplier, and I don't yell quite as much as he does, but like I just the way that he kind of conducts himself and does his content and everything has been a big part of at least kind of what I aspire to. Yeah. Another one is Video Game Donkey. Actually, I'm a huge. Pete and Sarah don't like Video Game Donkey so much.
Yeah, not as much. I wouldn't say we dislike him, but I'm not.
He has his moments.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And so, Video Game Donkey, I like a lot of that. And then, JonTron videos in general.
Oh, but why? Wow.
There's a lot of content that I like. And of course, the early JonTron videos just have so many exploitable memes from them.
Yeah, in terms of comedy, commentary, that kind of thing, it's kind of just us. There's not really much to say about it, really. It's kind of, we're just the same as we are off screen as well as on screen. It's just us shooting the shit, an innuendo thrown. It might be a little bit less rude on camera. We don't quite go it's a bit more innuendo and not shall I get my cock out kind of thing. I'm referencing Mitchell and Webb
Unless we're
there.
playing Danganronpa, which is
the text, the kind of the dialogue does that for us a little bit.
Then shall we get our front tail out?
Get the front tail out.
But it's not us guys, it's the writers. Anyway.
But yeah, it's kind of in that respect, it's just how we are generally in real life. So
yes, ask Pete if Sarah and I make make fewer puns or innuendos when we're off screen.
I think that said it all, guys.
So I mean, from my point of view, really, as kind of the sort of low-key leader of the sort of the channel to somewhat, I would say I've sort of looked up certain content about sort of trying to see if there were things that we could do to sort of improve our videos. Which again, I mean, you'll see with our older content, as I mentioned before, but so I mean, I saw some videos that were, I mean, we don't really take a great deal of influence from this guy because obviously our content's totally different, but so Mr. Beast put out, he had some interviews that were actually quite interesting. Yeah. And it was mainly just about how to, because I think in the early days, we didn't get a lot of attention for almost a full year.
Yeah.
And so I do remember sort of looking to see if there was anything we could sort of do, and some of the ideas were around he would say that if someone isn't sort of hooked it on your video in the opening sort of few seconds of it, they'll just move on. They don't care, because obviously there's so much content out there, and it's so easy to just go on to something else that you need to sort of try and hook people quickly. So that sort of served a couple of purposes. So one purpose was, our intros were really long. If you recall, and I don't even mean the sort of recanting what happened in the previous video. I mean literally just the music, the sort of the opening,
logo,
the opening logo bit was so long. It was
Too
like
long, some
it was
might
like
say.
double the length, which was just like agonizing to go back to. And then
Yeah.
obviously we would try and, every video we would poorly try and recant what happened in the previous one.
Oh
and-
God.
Why did we ever think that was a good idea?
Which, I mean, to some extent, maybe
You
the
learn
thi-
from your mistakes.
to some extent, maybe people like it to a little bit, but it just is not. It's not cool. When you want to try and you want to get stuck in.
Yeah.
And so that was what kind of birthed the recap.
Yes.
Which, it is a little bit more sort of work to do, but it meant that there isn't that sort of opening fumble where we're falling over ourselves trying to remember. And most of the people who sort of watch our content, at least from my understanding, most of you seem to already be familiar with the games and whatnot. So
Yeah.
we don't sort of worry so much about recapping what happened in the game. I mean, we will to some extent, but a lot of it is kind of like jokes we've made or like where we've done something funny, because I figure that if that's what you're watching our channel for, you're not
Yeah.
really watching it because you want a genuine let's play of the game, because there's so many out there. You'd watch something without commentary, but like if you're coming to us, it's because you enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it makes sense in the recap to sort of highlight that, and so that's kind of what sort of inspired that, really.
And kind of now, like, we've got the sort of the limit of the recaps as well to kind of a certain time save. So if you don't want to see it,
You can just
know
skip,
where to skip to.
It's like
kind
2.5 minutes on and you're in.
Yeah.
And then, although in following Mr. Beast's footsteps, join Disillusioned Plays when we do the $1 million Danganronpa killing game in real life.
Oh
Jesus
my God.
Christ.
Shut up, you.
I think we'll be about 80 by the time that.
But yeah, so I mean, it all kind of served as a win-win. I mean, in terms of like other channels, I mean, Taylor mentioning sort of Markiplier, just for generally how we conduct ourselves and whatnot. Like, yeah, I think he's quite a good one. We also, and again, to serve as a reminder that like our content, sometimes we might be like, oh, are people really enjoying this? Is it a bit too silly? But then Sarah and I will watch Drawfee.
Yes.
Quite religiously, and it's literally just
They
a bunch of guys shooting the shit and
Yeah.
like
And
ripping
it's
each,
so
tearing each other a
random.
new one, and
Yeah.
and we love it. Like and so we figured that like, damn it, they've got as many subscribers as they have. Surely there must be people who enjoy that sort of content.
Yeah.
One
There's
of my
like
favorite
podcasts.
bits from
Sorry, Taylor. Go on.
one of my favorite bits from Drawfee is the one where they're talking about VTubers, and the guy has this one joke, but then someone completely steals it. He's
Julie.
like, "I've been waiting for this my entire life." Construction, and it just reminds me of when I was stolen Pete's joke, and he's like,
Yeah, I am full. I am
You are
Jacob.
Jacob.
I am Jacob. Like just trying to steer the ship while everyone else is just like jumping overboard.
Yeah, and like Pete will listen to podcasts and things like in the background. Like I'll hear like I don't know something, but he's
my
doing
brother
he's-
and me and
yeah,
stuff.
he's doing the dishes and he's got the podcast. But yeah, my brother and me. And again, they're just like like we're not advice.
Yeah, we are an
don't
advice
give
show, but don't listen to.
yeah, and it's just again random banter, and it's
Yeah.
it's hilarious.
It's good fun. It's good fun. This is getting wholly off topic.
Yeah, we should move on.
We need to move on quick. So, Blogs by TPG asks, how did or do your off-camera play sessions differ from the ones you share with everyone? Less stressful, not as jokey, more jokey, etc.
I mean, I would say that they're honestly pretty similar, because one of our goals was always to make sure that we sort of stay true to our friend dynamic and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of what was important to us. And that was what we started off doing, was like, we kind of started off with the whole idea that we were just going to put out what we were doing and be authentic about it.
Yeah.
And if people enjoyed it, they would enjoy it. But we were primarily kind of doing it for ourselves and just because we were having fun with it. And so, there's a bit less pressure if we flub a line or something, because, obviously if we're recording, we need to mark it, or, if we really mess it up, unless, someone's like, I killed him. And then, and then we just proceed on with it and we riff
the
on.
bride of the Van Siegs.
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
The bride of the Van
Or
Zieg.
me with
He looked so
happened to.
beautiful in his wedding dress.
Like, yeah, I mean, the only things that tend to not make it really are just like if we make a really inappropriate joke by accident, or if we say something that's just like, oh, we really shouldn't have said that. That was oops, I did not mean to say that. And that just really needs to kind of not be there.
or if we cross the streams with Ace Attorney and Danganronpa, for example, because one of the things is that, so we'll record Danganronpa first and then Great Ace Attorney.
Yeah.
Even though chronologically speaking, they're flipped. And the problem with that, as I'm sure some of you have noticed, is that after we've played Danganronpa, sometimes some stuff will slip out in Great Ace Attorney, which we intentionally try to have less swearing and less innuendo. We don't always succeed at that, but
No.
I don't know
and
what
so
you mean.
if we really mess that up, then we'll have to cut. So yeah, I mean, there's a bit less pressure, but the lame puns and the jokes are just as prevalent off camera as they are on. Isn't that right, Pete?
He's laughing, but he's dying inside.
And my suffering.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, what I don't really have a great deal to add. I mean, we made a point again, as we wanted this channel to kind of be cozy. We want it to be this sort of, friends sort of messing about kind of atmosphere, and generally sort of like be quite chill. We don't make a big point about trying to, press through the games at 1,000,000 miles an hour, as I'm sure you've noticed episode 67 of Danganronpa as of this recording.
If we played Danganronpa 2 any slower, we'd be going backwards.
It would be back to Trigger Happy Havoc.
Right, wait till we get to V3, guys.
But yeah, so, generally speaking, we sort of we take it at our own pace and whatnot, and I don't know what to say there. I've lost my train of thought. Oh no.
Oh no.
But yeah, so we sort of make a point of like not sort of trying to put on any kind of persona or anything like that.
No.
Like, as what you hear is kind of who we are and how we are. There again, as Taylor mentioned, there are some sort of minor sort of differences, as he said, just generally about sort of just how we conduct ourselves and whatnot. Like, again, in the earlier videos, we would just kind of like do whatever, and as time's gone on, we've had like some comments with like certain. I remember like an early bit of criticism, for example, was like that we were ruining the sad moments in Trials and Tribulations, and so we kind of took that on board. And it's only a simple thing, but we kind of were. We were just like joking a bit too much, and so we were like, okay, well maybe if the moment in game is not, it is quite serious, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we should kind of dial it back just a little bit at that moment and just to let it, unless it's really ridiculous. I mean, Danganronpa generally is quite like what the actual F most of the time.
Yeah, some of it might occasionally like slip, and it might be right. Oh, come on, guys, we're ruining the sad moments, but we kind of then get back on track with it, kind of thing.
So we've kind of, I think the only thing that's really changed is that we've got maybe a little more serious with it. Like we don't, some of the voices, we have less of the Canadian judge.
He's a classic.
And all that sort of stuff.
But then for every serious moment, we have a, what did you say?
There is that.
Oh, God. I think for me, sort of, I guess the guys have pretty much covered a lot of it, but like for me personally, I was very apprehensive about starting the channel. You may have picked up that I am not a very confident person, and I do beat myself up if I do flub a line sometimes. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's like, oh god, I sound like an idiot.
It can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah, so I struggle with that quite a lot. So I was kind of like, oh god. And sort of, the internet can be a very brutal place. And I was kind of worried of like, oh god, what if someone says something? I'm not going to be able to cope with that. And like, but fortunately, the experience has been very wholesome. But that's kind of
I'd say definitely for the most part it has. Yeah, there's quite a lot of positive feedback. There's a lot
of. It's really nice to kind of see people enjoying the games that we do as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of like, how does it differ from off screen and everything? That's kind of my main one, really.
Low Quality asks, how do you keep up all the different voices and manage to interact together and still keep up with the story?
We don't.
We don't. Next question.
So for me, I will tend to mimic a gesture that the character does. I will strike that pose. Obviously, no one can see me because it's all voice. But I will, strike a gesture that the character will do. And generally, like, I do the recaps for the Great Ace Attorney. So doing them helps as well. So, like, just kind of skimming through it will kind of give me a brief overview. And it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that happened. And we're a collective hive mind as well. So sure, one of us will remember something the other doesn't. So there's that too.
You should have seen Sarah during the Giselle Brett thing where she was JoJo posing all the time with her swan.
My stand of swan.
From my point of view, as I'm sure you've picked up by now, and if you haven't, what the hell's wrong with you? I'm extremely forgetful. So,
No, never.
So,
How
so in terms of like remembering things, like remembering the story and whatnot, I am generally the one who has to be reminded of things. I do remember some things, but most of the time I'm the one who has to be reminded. But in terms of remembering voices, and I do forget voices as well, as I'm sure you may have noticed, they do tend to change over time as well. But
Shomes.
I guess. Well, and then people like say Yasuhiro. From Trigger Happy Havoc and stuff especially, but so for me I have like a verbal cue, I guess, that I catch myself doing without really thinking about it, where like say if I'm about to do Hajime, I might go like this because I'm straining,
The
you know,
enemy boy.
oh my
What
god,
an enemy boy groan.
what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
I'll kind of like, or something like that, or like whenever I'd do Gumshoe, I'd always go "Hey" first to sort of
Yeah.
remind myself of this kind of voice. And like with Fuyuhiko's kind of got this same sort of thing going on, so I might not go "Hey," but I have little things like that, and that's kind of
Maybe, I don't know.
and that's kind of me really.
So for me, it's kind of like a 3-step thing because there's the character's initial appearance, where I'll kind of try to give them a voice based on just how they look or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of like the first draft, which is after they've been in a couple of scenes or I've read a couple lines of dialogue. It's kind of like the start of the voice. And then after practicing with them a little bit and kind of having a chance to see their characterization, it kind of changes again. And usually just as a result of going through that process, I have a relatively easy time remembering them. The main exceptions are like people like the jurors or whatever who will say like one line and then it'll be like 4 weeks before we get back to that particular juror.
Only 4.
And then it's like, oh, and then you kind of just have to do the same process over again.
Yeah.
I have that exact same thing, by the way. Yeah, literally that. The jurors are like exceptionally difficult.
Yeah, they are.
Because just trying to remember them.
It's a good show that the juror cast was the same one for like everyone in the Great Ace Attorney, at least the first game.
The random pool of jurors, yes. I'm sure it was.
Very random. The recaps, so I do the recaps for Danganronpa 2, and so that helps me keep track of the story. And so that's kind of what I do to keep track. And then, like Sarah referenced a bit earlier, we are kind of a hive mind.
Yeah.
We're about 1.5 brains put together, like all 3 of us.
Cells.
Well, no, I'd say you're like, when you say 1.5, I'd say probably like 1 brain between the 2 of you.
Hey, that's mean. Now you're going to
anyway.
get chastised for being mean to yourself.
So we are able to kind of help each other and, pick up on certain things that someone else might have missed.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And it's like, I think it adds to the dynamic because, it's not just if one person forgets, it's not like, okay, well, that detail goes out the window because usually we're able to pick up on something.
Yes.
Battery Turan, or perhaps it's Turan Battery, depending on which social media platform you're looking at.
Yes.
Sorry if I'm messing up your name, by the way. Do you have any filming anecdotes? Anything interesting that got cut out or wasn't recorded?
Ooh.
So I'd say like we don't really have much in the way of things that get cut. Because
No.
generally speaking, the way we try and do this is we try and keep as much of it as possible just to save on editing. Because obviously we'll put like jokes in here and there, but other than that, to try and keep it keep things relatively straightforward, as we are, all 3 of us work full-time jobs and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we do this in our spare time. And we obviously put out 2 videos a week. We try and just keep it as straightforward as possible.
Yeah, because editing Pete starts scraping at the walls and howling and cursing if there's too many edits. He's like, no!
But then,
We don't need him to go on strike.
but
We're screwed.
in terms of like anecdotes or anything like that, I'd say like kind of the one that we'd all share is probably Scottish Gregson.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the whole like
the birth of Scottish Gregson.
and Scottish Yard and all that, and that does kind of come from like when we first did it, like Taylor just wanted to sort of throw a random voice out there, and I think decided to do like give him a Scottish accent,
a bad Scottish one.
And in the beginning it was quite bad. I'm sure you'll attest, Taylor. But like,
there's no like being brutally honest, is there?
It's improved considerably over time. But like in the beginning, it was this kind of like not so great Scottish accent. And I remember this one particular commenter was very very aggressive about sort of
did not like it.
Gregson is not Scottish, and it was like block caps and stuff, and we were like, oh, all right then. And then
so, and I was already feeling self-conscious about it. So I was already feeling self-conscious about the Scottish accent, and with the comment being that like, oh yeah, he's not Scottish and everything else, I kind of asked Pete and Sarah, do you think I should just give him a British accent? Should we just do that?
And we were kind of like, well, I mean, on the one hand, like, maybe, but that we're also like, I mean, this is, we're playing this. This is our playthrough. If he doesn't like the way that we're doing it, then go watch someone else's.
Yeah.
Like, really. So we were kind of like, no, you know what? We decided we wanted to do it this way, so no, we should run with it. And after a second video having a similarly aggressive comment, we were like, right, no, we're doubling down on it. No, that's it. No. So we did. We doubled down on it. So we became like slightly more Scottish, and then came like, instead of Scotland Yard, it became Scottish Yard, and and I mean, it's kind of, I don't know,
it just kind of adds to it. It's just, we've made it our own. It's our playthrough.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
And, I mean, we didn't really think that we were really hurting anybody at the end of the day. It is it's a fictional piece of media. It's not like this is a historical representation of anything. Yeah. Like, we're not, I don't see it that we're sort of pooping on the Sherlock Holmes, like,
no.
Canon.
No, because the game doesn't even feature Sherlock Holmes himself. It features Sherlock Holmes, who is like a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Surely.
Quite the opposite.
So yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. It's a weird thing, but we've had a lot of fun with Scottish Gregson. I would also say from my point of view with filming anecdotes, my favorite thing has probably been the whole thing with I know that voice. When we'd have moments where we'd go into court and the bailiff would come on screen, we were like, oh god, what sort of voice should he have? And we were like, well, we just imagine the most sort of nonsensical British sort of like
Taylor delivered it well.
and so Taylor would always do that, which was always hilarious in of itself. And then it just happened to set up this little gem where it turned out that for a period of the game, one of those bailiffs was actually Sholmes in disguise. But obviously we kept doing the silly voice. And then it turned out, and then obviously the reveal happened, and it was magical. It was absolutely magical.
It was just chef's kiss.
It was so good.
And we will run with that joke. We will wear it out.
I know that voice. Yes.
And it's like, my favorite bit is like, then it's like, I know that voice. Have I gone mad? And then Pete's like, stop craving.
Yeah. It was so good.
Oh, God. So, that was just great. I personally like Ringo and Nash just randomly popping up everywhere, and just kind of, they've got this little narrative of just failed, like, career ventures that they tried to do. The frickin' slug and salad with Chef Hottie. Oh my god. Doing the recap for that, I was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then just you've got to stick your fingers in the milk bottle to keep the gas in.
That's right, bottling the gas but having no way of sealing the bottle, so he had to do his fingers. Yeah, that was good fun, that one.
I've missed out on recent ones. I'll not give spoilers. There's one I missed out on. We should have done, but I just like their little failed business ventures.
Absolutely.
So there's this one joke in Rick and Morty where like Rick says to Morty, let's go, in and out, 20 minutes adventure. And then it's like the next scene is like 3 days later, it's like, oh God, I had no control of that situation. They're just like absolutely devastated because what they got into was so much worse than what they'd thought. That was what happened with Who Murdered Sonic. We started off Well, we started off, we looked at it, we're like, oh, well, this looks quite fun. It got released the other day.
Yeah, it blew up on news sites and whatnot, this sort of new, like, Sonic VN that came out, and we were like, oh, that might be fun to do, and it's like, it's a relatively short thing, so that might be quite fun as, like, a little, not exactly palate cleanser, but, like, let's just sort of chuck that in.
And we looked it up on how long to beat, and it was like 2 hours. And we're like, oh, okay, no problem.
Excellent.
Quick recording session. Quick recording session, quick adventure.
We'll do it in one go, because it'll be fine. Like,
and then
short.
5 hours later, we were like, oh, God, we've made a mistake.
What have we done? My voice man was trashed after
Yeah, we were so screwed.
It was a lot of fun. Obviously we've learned an important lesson, which is that if we try to evaluate any game based on how long to beat, we double the amount of time it will take for us to complete it.
Oh, Christ, yes.
And use that as the estimate, yeah.
Yep.
Terran Battery asks, can we get Editing Pete's voice reveal? Poor guy does so much work, but is sadly never heard.
Aww.
So, yeah, of course. So, as you've asked, we've got him to take some time out of his busy schedule to briefly say hello, just for this bit. And so, without further ado, drum roll, please. 3, 2, 1. Hello. It's a me, Pete. That is the voice. So, yeah.
It's Pete all along.
It is me. I don't know if it was obvious or not. I thought it was obvious that it was me, but either way, I don't know. We wanted to make a joke. I'm sorry, Tron. But it.
I feel like I stole that bit from Zero Lenny, where I started referring to it as like Editing Pete, because what he'll say is like, hey Lenny, editing this video, do the thing. And then, I just started jokingly saying, Editing Pete will do X, Y, Z, and we've just kind of run with it.
But yeah, so I generally do edit just about everything. So Sarah and Taylor, like, they'll sort of do the recap content and whatnot, and then sort of hand it over to me, and I will sort of put everything together and all that. So yes.
Pete's painstakingly tried to teach me Da Vinci at the minute, so I could do the edit, like get the gist of the edit for Great Ace Attorney. I have to commend his patience.
Well, it's just because at the moment they'll sort of, for the recap, they'll go through the YouTube video. Sarah and Taylor, they'll go through like the YouTube video that's uploaded, and they'll sort of pick out sort of choice bits and whatnot. And the idea is with that, they'll sort of like put down some timestamps, pass them back to me, and then I'll sort of create the recap from that. And so we're just trying to sort of skip that step and have them sort of do it directly, which is good fun. It's all, but yeah, no, it's all good fun. And I don't really know what else to add to that. So let's move on.
Editing Pete, everybody.
Editing Pete, me, yay. Okay, that's enough. Daniel Nunez, sorry if we bastardized that, asks, what would you say is the thing you have learned or have improved at since starting the channel?
So for me, it's the British-Scottish accent thing. I mean, obviously, Scottish Gregson is better. I wouldn't say it's like super, whatever, but the British accent is something that I've, improved at a good amount. There are occasional slips, such as the infamous examen or goss or
the
whatever.
Infamous examen.
But
goss as well.
It is something that I've improved at quite a bit, and I'm proud of how I've been able to adapt over time.
I do like your Reno
I think it's pretty good. Like the whole sort of is as a non-regional sort of British accent, sort of Queen's English British accent. I can't even speak. I am British.
We can't speak
even
British ourselves.
But I think it's pretty convincing. But as a British person, although then again, who knows?
Well, thank you. I think the other big one is kind of being able to genuinely assess my performance rather than being so predisposed to saying it was crap.
Yeah.
That is something that and I, play it off for laughs a lot of the time, but starting off, I really was just I couldn't listen to anything I had recorded without being like, oh, that's crap. I need to redo that because it just didn't sound good. Now I'm able to listen back and be like, yeah, that was good. That was a good bit.
Yeah.
As you should, because it is pretty good most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all pretty good. I don't know. It's like, yes, it's all pretty good. Instilling the doubt.
Most of the time.
I'm sorry. No, it's good.
Someone passive a shovel, or is it a spade?
And there I go again.
Taylor, I want you to know at least 60% of the time you do a 30% acceptable job.
I was gonna say, 60% of the time, every time, you do a good job. From my point of view, I would say that it's the importance of establishing like a workflow. So we, as you know, we put out 2 videos a week. We all work full time. It's quite a challenge being able to do that and also work and also have some semblance of free time. So
What's that?
I mean, yeah. So it's. Yeah, that we have the whole thing of like we record everything on one day, and then from there we have like a sort of a system that we go through of like getting pulling all of the media together, editing it, preparing and sort of doing the recaps in time for next week. And then sort of like publishing it all to YouTube in readiness and whatnot. And that's part of the reason why we have a buffer. So sometimes obviously you guys will leave comments and say, oh yeah, don't forget to do this. And unfortunately we often kind of can't, because we have around a 2-week-ish buffer, mainly because of the fact that we work. And there are times when we might not get around to being able to edit something in time.
Life happens.
And so we end up having to pull not an all-nighter or anything like that, but we'll end up having to do a lot more editing, say, than we'd normally want to, or like trying to sort of get things together just to try and make the time back, so that if work,
someone will have forgotten to hit record or something, and then we have to go back and re-record the previous episode.
That's not ever happened before.
Yeah, that's absolutely not my fault at all.
I've done it too.
Well, I was going to say, there were a couple of times earlier in early days where I kind of maybe I accidentally forgot to record the game play, so that was fun. Although one of us does frequently forget to send his audio files over for us to join together. So we're kind of both a bit guilty, and then Sarah doesn't have to worry about it because I deal with it all on our end. So Sarah's the good
I'm
one.
obsolete, guys.
No, that's not what I said.
There you go.
No.
Pete's got his spade and is digging his hole again.
I did not say.
Spade.
Dang it! Stop it!
I'm only kidding.
Come on then, Sarah. What have you learned then? What have you learned?
No, I have to worry about the new way of doing the recaps now. So yeah, that's.
Well, we'll see about that. We're trialing that out.
Yeah. So these questions I really struggle with. It's not always. It's still not where I'd like it to be. But I feel like my confidence has grown over time. It's got better. From the first sort of initial recording, it's like, oh god. I mean, and there still will be moments, as the guys will attest to. I freak out doing an intro. When it's my turn to do an intro, I still freak out. I've got better. But there are times where I'm just like, I don't know if I'm just all up in my own head about it, and I'm like, oh my god.
I mean, it definitely used to be a thing when we were sort of trying to recant everything and whatnot, before the recaps came in and whatnot, and maybe it's like a leftover from that,
maybe
sort of,
I don't know, but it's got better. I'm getting there, sort of being able to kind of quickly think of a voice to do as well has kind of got better as my confidence has kind of grown. Again, still it's not quite there yet, but I feel like my American accent's kind of gotten better over time as well. There's still the odd word that will trip me up. Again, it's not it's not my native accent, so it's it kind of ends up flitting into how I would say it in my normal voice to an accent, and it kind of gets a bit muddled up at times, but I feel like it's got better. Especially with the cutesy voices like Owie, it's got there, and I don't sound as mundane. I remember doing Adrian Andrews from Trials of Tribulation, and she just sounded so mundane because I just didn't know how to kind of put any emotion into it.
But she kind of is mundane anyway, so.
No, I know, but then there was kind of Lana Skye and Emma Skye as well, and again it kind of ended up just sounding similar to Adrian, and it's am I gonna struggle getting any emotion into this? But it's there, it's got there. And just being able to do more concise recaps, because I would always kind of put too much in, and then Pete would have to go in and take a crap ton out, and Sarah, it's too long again.
If there's one thing Sarah has a habit of doing, it's over-delivering on her, on pretty much anything she ever does. and
but
going too in depth into it,
Yeah.
which most of the time is like really, really good. But sometimes when you just need something to be short,
Editing Pete gets annoyed.
Editing Pete in his dungeon sees that the recap is 5 minutes long. He howls at the night sky, knowing it will be another 3 hours before he can sleep.
Yeah.
it's not entirely untrue though either.
But like, oh, but yeah.
Trying to trim them down sometimes. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But yeah, now they're like they've been like a couple of them have been like bang on, like spot on for the, and he was like
quite frequently actually.
yeah, or it's like
weird.
maybe it's like a few seconds over. So I've managed to kind of pinpoint more important bits and trim out the guff that I would probably have added in previously.
Yeah, you got pretty good at it now. Yavi Cooper, I mean, presumably it's that. I'm sorry if we've bastardized your name. What are the voices you are most proud of?
Oh, well, I mean, I did have a lot of fun with Junko.
Yes. Yes.
Just, oh boy, she has so many personalities.
What, just one or two?
Just one or two. So I kind of liked the challenge of being like sort of having to think very quickly how to do the next persona because oh boy,
Yeah.
that was a challenge. But I did enjoy it. I did like it. I did like Owie. Like I managed to kind of get the cutesy sort of American accent a little bit there, and she was able to be super cute.
Yeah.
And then kind of the main one, I think, was Tails from The Murder of Sonic.
Yeah, Tails was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the first time doing sort of a young male sort of, I would say, I guess protagonist. He did feature quite a lot.
Well,
but-
yeah, we didn't know he was going to be the protagonist,
No.
and yet he pretty much was.
Yeah, so being able to practice that and do a reasonably convincing enough job, I was quite happy with. So yeah, I would say that.
Sarah won't toot her own horn about it, but in true
No.
Sarah fashion, she is concerned about how well she'll do something, and then she'll launch in and then immediately do an amazing job with it. It's like, oh no, I'm really worried that I'm not going to sound like it, and then she just immediately sounds like it. It's like,
Yep. From my point of view, I would say I think I was most impressed with the conductor from Murder of Sonic.
Yes,
actually,
he was good.
Like
yes.
I know it's just kind of like a throwaway character and whatnot, but like I don't know, it just sort of I got it immediately, and it just felt like quite natural. Like I feel like it sounded like a fairly natural, strained, but
it sounded like
voice.
a very like good natural senior
yeah,
gentleman.
I like to
Yeah.
think so as well. I'm pretty proud of Monokuma.
Yeah, I
I
like
mean,
it, Monokuma.
I will admit, like Monokuma is basically just the kind of like an impression of the existing one. I just couldn't imagine any other voice for him.
No.
So I mean, there is that, meh. Also, again, speaking of similar senior gentlemen, I quite like the judge from Great Ace Attorney.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about, honestly.
Yes.
It's quite strange.
I do quite like that.
Yeah.
He's not quite as clueless as the other judges, but he's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he is.
For me, Bruno, partially because it's, the developing with the British accent, but also just because he vacillates back and forth between being kind of genteel and proper, but then just having so much biting sarcasm. And it's really, really fun to go back and forth.
Especially in the second game as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's really come into it.
Yes.
The one thing that I really want to give it to Great Ace Attorney 2, or even Great Ace Attorney 1, is like, in Danganronpa, for comparison, the main character insert is just kind of bland and generic. Like, they don't really have any personality of their own. But Ryunosuke, in contrast, he's very much in his own individual character.
Yeah.
Which I like a lot. Nagito, mostly just because going back and forth between being crazy and being friendly. That's a lot of fun. And then also, I clearly was able to accurately capture it because that's the reaction I get every time I mention it. So I've done a good job with it. And then, look at me just because,
of course.
he's left a lasting impression on others. And what can anyone else ask?
I don't know what you mean.
I do like a bit of Luke at me, I will admit.
No, he's good. He is definitely good. And it's interesting as well because a lot of the renditions we've seen of him in like with other Let's Plays and also the anime as well make him out to be this kind of almost like a bit of
zany.
a jester, like
Yeah.
a court jester, right?
Yeah.
And yet, like,
That's me, the tragic clown.
I mean, well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe it was taken from that line. But like, there's something about his sort of suave overconfidence, then
Yes.
just sort of giving way to him basically just being a Burke. It does amuse me. Anyhow,
All right, guys, it's time now for the lightning round.
who is Ew
Ew.
asks, who's your favorite and least favorite character from each game? The games that we've played so
Oh,
far.
heck.
So, right then, Trials and Tribulations.
Yep.
I quite liked Armstrong. He was no, mais oui. He was very fun. I hated Victor Kudo. He was just a grumpy old git.
Straps.
Strapped.
Yeah, and the straps thing.
I really like Edgeworth, naturally. I do have a soft spot for Gumshoe as well. God
Dick
bless him.
Gumshoe.
I don't hate her, but Old Bag really got on my nerves. She's just like always there. It's like, go away.
Yeah.
Godot is my favorite mostly because he's as much of a coffee fiend as I am,
Except
and
for
I
the
really like
old-
Pete's voice for him.
Except for the old kitten.
Oh, no.
No, that was his prior incarnation. I forget his name.
Armando.
Armando.
Diego.
Yes, Armando. Yes, Armando was cringe, but Godot was not. Dahlia is my least favorite just because it's like, she's just kind of evil for being evil.
All right.
That's Iris.
Danganronpa
But is it?
Trigger Happy Havoc. So for me, I like the design. I like the design of Celeste, but like she was kind of a bit. Bleh. I think probably really thinking about it, my favorite character was Sakura. She was like the most honorable
Yes, she
character.
was.
Like she was quite intimidating, but she actually turned out to be like a really genuine,
She had
like,
a heart of gold.
yeah, absolutely. I didn't really like Mondo, and this whole kind of like biker gang thing. I just thought it was a bit meh.
Yeah. I love Aoi. She's just super cute, determined, loves donuts. I mean, who doesn't?
Super important.
Super important, loves donuts. Like I say, he got better. I don't particularly hate him or anything, but I didn't like Byakuya. Like he came into his own, but just the whole thing with Chihiro's trial,
Like messing up the crime
stringing
scene
her
and
up
stuff.
to kind of prove a point that Genocide Jack Jill was among them, and it's like, oh no, what are you doing?
For me, Aui's my favorite. Again, she's just kind of, very cute and determined, and I like that a lot. Celeste was my least favorite, primarily because she killed Hifumi, but also just because her whole motivation for killing Hifumi and trying to escape was so she could have a
castle
full of
vampires.
of boys who dressed up as vampires, which I just didn't like.
For sure. Danganronpa 2.
So I like Ibuki's design, and she's just really zany. I think I like Chiaki best because she's just a super cute gamer girl, and
Yeah.
she's just so she just wants everyone to do their best. I mean, it might come as a shock, guys, but I can't stand Nagito. He's just so manipulative and just the overbearing self-loathing and
Yeah.
he makes my skin crawl.
It is-
Well, that makes sense. I mean, someone as
no!
worthless
Taylor,
as me
don't-
could never be
Taylor,
loved.
we're in the lightning round. Stop!
No!
Don't make Sarah cringe.
No!
So for me, I agree with Sarah in like Chiaki. I think Chiaki's good fun. She also happens to kind of be like the most normal out of them,
Yeah.
ironically, right?
Yeah.
I also kind of, in a bit of a sort of out of left field thing, started to like Hiyoko a little bit. Like I know she was a little shit and like a little brat, but she actually starts to show some amount of growth, like with feeling
with
bad about the
Mahiru,
whole thing with
yeah.
Mahiru and like trying to sort of honor her in a sort of
The weird
fucked up way.
shrine.
But I don't know. I thought it was kind of cute, and she seemed to start to come around. Apart from her whole interaction with Mikan, which then leads me on to I didn't like Mikan. The gratuitous fan service had sort of. I just thought she was really cringe. I'm sorry, guys. I know.
Sorry.
But Sarah, stop it.
Nekomaru is my favorite. I like JoJo. Nekomaru is basically Jotaro Kujo from,
Yeah,
part 3.
yeah.
An
And
average
I just
high
love
school
how
student.
strong and, motivated he was. Taro was my least favorite
Oh,
because he
God.
takes
What?
he goes past the whole perverted thing and he basically turns into friggin' Mineta from My Hero Academia. And you never go full Mineta. You never want to be on that end of the scale.
I have no reference for that. So, okay.
I'm guessing very, very creepy.
So, Great Ace Attorney 1 and 2. For me, I like Susato a lot. I didn't to begin with. but I do now. I love how her dynamic with Ryunosuke has changed over time and how she's sort of come to accept him and how they're now this kind of like dynamic duo that sort of can't be apart. I think it's great. I also love Ryunosuke and how his sarcasm has sort of increased as it's gone on and whatnot.
Yeah.
How he sort of he doesn't take any prisoners anymore with it anymore, and so he often says what we're thinking, and I love that.
Yes.
I didn't really hate many people, but I'd say probably many Memo. Like many Memo. Because it's just the whole I didn't kill her and I stabbed her and that proves that I didn't kill her. It's just like, what? Come on, man.
Oh dear, yeah, it was a bit weird. Yes. Mine, for me, I do like Gina. She's just this little lovable rogue, but she's had quite a lot of character growth from the first game. Sort of, she got hooked up with the whole sort of McGilded trial and sort of blackmailed into it, but she's just like wanted to look out for like everybody else. And then, she's now Inspector Lestrade now, and she's just, she's like funny, caring, rough exterior, but a soft, gooey middle.
Absolutely.
I like Herlock as well because he's just a buffoon. He's just a lovable buffoon. If I have to dislike anyone, I don't like Lord Strongheart. I feel like he's got this ulterior motive to rise to power and just nefarious deeds. I feel like there's some nefarious deeds on the way and he doesn't care who gets hurt along the way. There's just something about him I don't trust him.
Yeah.
For me, Ringo and Nash are my favorite characters. They were kind of like dark horses a little bit, just because they kind of came out of nowhere and they wound up being so much fun and also just kind of being an enduring joke. So I'm a big fan of them. Shamsir was my least favorite, mostly just because of the impact he had on poor Olive. And she already had so much going wrong in her life, and he just managed to flush everything she had going for her down the toilet. So I wasn't a fan of him.
No.
Right, Murder of Sonic.
Oh, blimey, yeah.
So for me, I'd say Barista Shadow, who was not in the game, but he is in our hearts.
Yes.
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't sort of really have much of a favorite, really. I thought everyone was pretty good. I don't know. But I wasn't sort of a big fan I also didn't really hate anybody, but I wasn't a big fan of Bingus's Game Child isometric game thing. I know it's not a character, but damn it.
We're clutching at straws here.
I just didn't like that thing. But no, I didn't really sort of like or hate anybody. I kind of liked everybody equally.
Yeah. So generally I found Amy quite annoying in like some of the other Sonic games, but in this, like, I love her just fun enthusiasm, like, it's my birthday kind of thing. She's like really like fun and energetic. Like, again, I don't really hate anyone, but like Blaze probably wasn't the most fun to voice. Like, I didn't really have a lot of fun with her character.
Bit boring.
Yeah. I'm clutching here, but I didn't dislike anybody.
I like Rouge for no reason, and I will not be taking questions.
But I can think of a couple of reasons you liked her, right?
I feel like that's dangerously close to slander. I dislike Robotnik because he enslaved a little bird and tried to make him power an entire train.
True.
There is that.
That's true.
There is
that. Bad Robotnik. Bad. I suppose we should do some honourable mentions.
Yeah.
Like, what do we think?
Well, maybe not you two.
Oh, you get out!
My favorite character from Little Hope was the monster that killed everyone. That was my favorite character.
I would agree.
And I'd like to purge Observer from my mind entirely. Honestly,
it never happened. It was made up by a writer.
So I can certainly think of one honourable mention.
I
don't know what you mean.
Do I hear my theme song?
Maybe. A certain dagger enthusiast.
Oh, yes, and a very suave voice, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, love, like, Luke Atby is, like, consensus for all of us. Like, yeah, we absolutely adore.
I mean, this is basically just the kind of, like, stroke Taylor's ego section. Because, because, like, ego, Sarah, ego. Because, also, like, his Kazuichi and his Hifumi.
God, yes. They brought so much life. He brought so much life to those characters. Like, before, I'm like, don't really care.
And yet it's weird how they just end up being these sort of great comic relief characters. It's they brought a lot of joy to it.
You've done a very good job, sir.
Thank you.
Oh dear.
Oh no, I made him only Bowers. I'm sorry.
I am glad that I can serve my adoring public. It is
we
the
go.
recognition an ace detective is due, after all. I may be dead, but I'm not gone!
Too deep.
I'm just sort of here, I guess.
Sondover Dark Rose asks, do you like chili? Do you like it best when it's in a bowl, on spaghetti, on a hot dog, or on fries?
I mean, I do like a bit of chili con carne and rice, but like on fries with chips, fries, chips, wherever you're from.
Yep.
With chili and cheese.
That
Yes.
does sound pretty good. I mean, I'm basically the same as Sarah here. Though, I mean, on a hot dog might be interesting, kind of
yeah,
Sonic style.
Chili dogs.
Chili dog.
I'm a chili and bowl person, but I sort of want to try it on spaghetti now that you've mentioned it.
Yeah, not had that one.
Mary Beth WJ asks, who does the best Russian accent?
Not me.
Well, there we go.
Like
Okay.
the only sort of like characters I can think to drive inspiration from is Boris the Blade from Snatch.
Oh, yeah.
Or Boris from 007 GoldenEye?
Oh, yeah, the hacker guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Natalia.
Is he the one that goes, I am invincible?
That's the one.
Yes, the
that's,
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
am invincible. And then he proceeds to get
And then he
like-
gets crushed.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Narrator's note, he was not invincible.
Yeah.
But yeah, not exactly fluent in the old Russian accent.
I mean, I'm kind of the same. I mean, I knew of Boris the Blade as well. I've seen Snatch, but the only other one that sort of comes to my mind is the guy from like Armageddon. It's
Oh.
Peter Stormare.
Yes.
And he's like in a space station. He's like, this is the Russian space station.
Yeah,
And that's all I
yeah.
kind of really know. It's so probably not me either.
No.
I have not idea.
Right, cool, great.
moving-
So moving on.
Yeah.
So Kumo Kamiko asks, who is your patron deity among the 12 in Final Fantasy XIV?
Ooh, so mine is Memphina the Lover.
Okay. Mine, so Taylor said it didn't matter when we picked it, when we sort of created our characters, so I just kind of chose randomly. So I chose Gnarled Thal because they look pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty badass.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I chose Nofika on my main character, which Pete will eventually give me crap for when he realizes who that is. And then Azema on my alt that I play with them.
Now I'm curious.
Is it like a big busty anime girl?
I'm going to not say it.
So we know, for God's sake.
I see you're a man of culture.
Right. Batteray Turan, again, asks, which characters would we like fan art of?
Well, I mean, I do like Edgeworth, so one of Edgeworth, Kazuma, because I do like Kazuma. I kind of have a scene in mind of like Nick and Maya in like a burger joint, and Maya is just like stuffing her face full of hamburgers, and Nick is just there with a very sad expression with an empty wallet, just like, she's eaten me out of house and home. And Gumshoe's just there like, I know how you feel, pal. I can't take another celery cut, pal.
I mean, oh God, I don't know. I suppose something that might be quite cool is if we got some fan art of like Madame Two Spells, like, I don't know, giving Shomes some shit or something. Like, I guess like doming
Cauldron.
Shomes or
Oh,
something.
my goodness.
Well, like, I don't know,
Oh,
like
dear.
I don't know.
She's there stirring the cauldron, like,
Yeah, or like, or he's under a
sadistically in the background.
under a boot or something, chastising him for being a terrible wax model or something. I think that might be quite funny.
That would be funny.
So I really loved the one that Doodle Squish did of Pete and Sarah as Ringo and Nash and then me as Gregson.
yes.
But what I think would also be funny is if it was Ringo and Nash with Sarah and myself as them, and
Yeah.
then Pete as Graydon.
Oh, yeah,
to,
Ashley
to-
Graydon,
to complete
yeah.
the criminal trio.
Yes.
More fan art of Sticky and Ryunosuke because that little gag is just so amusing to me, and I would love, I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah.
And then one other thing that I thought would be cute is like if Gina and Susato like briefly swapped outfits. Like if Gina had the kimono and then Susato had like the little goggles and hat and everything.
Oh,
like
like
a
so
sort of
that was
a-
helping her with the kimono.
Like a sort of
Yeah.
a culture swap or
Oh, that'd
something,
be
like
so
like
cute.
Susato introducing Gina to like Japanese culture and being like, look, here's tying
Oh,
a
that
kimono.
would be super cute.
That'd be awesome. Blake the Ginger asks, what are each of your Hogwarts houses?
Hufflepuff!
Okay.
I've been a Hufflepuff for years. I did the test, did the
So
quiz.
I did the same quiz, whichever one it was, one of the many million quizzes. I wanted to be Ravenclaw. I thought it'd be interesting. It was Gryffindor. Just
Oh, don't
like,
sound too disappointed.
yeah, but I mean, it's just like everyone. It's like, oh yeah, the mate, same as Harry and all that.
I also took the same quiz, but I am also a Hufflepuff.
Yay, fellow Hufflepuff! I've got my own.
Daniel Nunez asks, is any of you guys into tabletop RPGs?
Well, there's this small card game that some people might know about. It's called Magic the Gathering, and I spend way too much money and time on it and playing it, but it is one of my favorites ever. I play mostly Commander, but I do play a little bit of Modern, so that's, that's my main one. I play a little bit of Flesh and Blood as well. I enjoy that one. As far as like more standard tabletop RPGs, I have a Vampire the Masquerade game that I play in. I've played D&D before. And then one game that Pete, Sarah, and I actually played together when I went over to visit them was Stuffed Fables.
Yeah,
which was
Stuffed Fables is a lot of fun.
Good. It's so
Yeah, it
cute.
was a lot of fun.
So, like, I'm not. I used to be into sort of Magic the Gathering at one point. I generally am kind of a little bit less into it these days because it's just with it just being this kind of never-ending thing. I like the idea of kind of having like more board games or more, board and card games to sort of more variety, and rather than just sort of the one thing. So we're sort of into like quite a few sort of other games. I like the idea of D&D, but we just and similar sort of tabletop role-playing games. But we just kind of don't really find the time for it, and sort of haven't really had a chance to kind of go out to the sort of game shops and whatnot with the others and whatnot. Besides, we're horrendously introverted, so we can, it's sort of a bit of a difficulty with that.
And our best friends across the pond, so it's a bit difficult.
Well, I mean, we did mention Tabletop Simulator, so I mean, so that's kind of how we've played some of these. So like Arkham Horror, the living card game, is one that like Sarah and I are like really fond of. I've collected like literally all of it. Descent is another fun one. Again, Fantasy Flight sort of game. It's a sort of dungeon crawly thing. The betrayal games like Betrayal at House on the Hill, and like there is a Dungeons and Dragons version that's fun. Baldur's Gate, that's quite fun. Battlestar Galactica is one that I really, really like, but I just really wish I could get more people together to do it. It's a kind of like a social bluffing game themed on the sci-fi show. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
And we do have Gloomhaven and Frosthaven.
Those epic boys.
Yeah, we just kind of haven't sort of had a proper chance to get them out and actually delve into them yet.
Yeah.
But we did also quite recently at a convention acquire a Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, which is a smaller version.
Excited to play that.
So we're excited to play that soon.
Yes. So yeah, again, it's kind of a similar basis with Pete on
I mean,
that
we
one.
live together. So
we live together.
we have similar interests.
I will kind of mention like a few others. So like Cards Against Humanity, it's kind of some of our friends are not that much into games, are they're kind of not into the like sort of
not quite
anything
as
other than
into it.
like if it's past Monopoly, it's kind of like no, out the window. But like Cards Against Humanity has been a good one that we've kind of managed to get like some of our other friends to share. So it's kind
sort
of
of
a
like
fun party
non-gamer
game.
friends and whatnot.
Yeah, and like Flux, like we've got various iterations of Flux.
Yeah.
I do like Mansions of Madness. Again, it's kind of sort of like the Arkham Horror, kind of the Lovecraftian themed.
It's a little bit more narrative based and whatnot.
It
though.
is.
It's got like an app and stuff. It's quite fun.
One of my particular favourites is Gloom.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely love Gloom, and kind of, Taylor's been over here to visit us. We've been to visit Taylor, and it's kind of fun when we've played it like with Taylor and like with sort of his brother and everything, and we kind of make up a narrative for it. So we make up a little story for the characters and what's happening, which kind of makes it more fun. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, Daniel Nunez again asks, what are you guys' favorite game voice actors?
Oof.
So I think we could probably start this off with saying like we all quite enjoyed the performance of Lance Reddick.
Yes.
As Destiny players and whatnot, we quite enjoyed him as Commander Zavala.
He will always be my Titan commander. And Silence, he did a pretty good job as Silence.
Oh yes, he did.
Well
Yeah, Silence was awesome.
Yeah.
From my point of view, I mean, I quite like David Hayter, Metal Gear Solid, obviously. He is the true voice of Snake. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness, my brain. Kiefer Sutherland. Sorry, Kiefer Sutherland. It just wasn't the same.
You don't do it for him.
So yeah. So Crispin Freeman's quite fun. I used to quite enjoy trying to spot him in various things.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure there was a recent trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the first voice you hear is his. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Crispin Freeman.
But we don't know. We haven't confirmed yet.
Jennifer Hale was pretty awesome in like Mass Effect and the various million other games that she's done. And it's boring, but like Troy Baker, I've been particularly enjoying his performance as Joel in The Last of Us, and he was also pretty cool as Pagan Min in Far Cry 4.
Yeah,
I mean, even though you don't see him that great deal, like I've sort of quite enjoyed it.
left an impression. So I quite like Roger Clark's portrayal of Arthur Morgan from Red Dead 2. Like, just such an emotional, like, storyline, and he just portrayed it really well. Again, kind of boring. It's like, you know, everyone knows him, Nolan North, because he's just the fun, just really fun, and he's got the Uncle Noli YouTube skits, and it's just funny, just your fun uncle. And then I do quite like Ashley Birch as Aloy. I think she works really well for Aloy as well in Horizon.
So for me, Matt Mercer is kind of like the ideal. You know, he's kind of been in a bunch of stuff. He's been in Overwatch. He's been in Guild Wars 2. He's been in a huge number of huge games.
Yeah.
He was, oh God, what was his name? Yusuke in Persona 5.
Oh, wow.
You know,
yes,
he's just super prolific, super talented. He obviously does Critical Role as well, and so he just kind of professionally and everything else is kind of what I aspire to be.
Yeah.
Chris Sabat, voice of Vegeta, voice of Piccolo, voice of All Might. He just lends this kind of gravitas to any role that he's in, which is it's just amazing, and I wish I was kind of half as talented as he was. Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, kind of two halves of the same coin. Kevin Conroy will forever be the classic Batman. Mark Hamill will be the classic Joker. Kevin Conroy is another one that I was very sad to see pass, but he lent so much depth to that character. Blake Ritson, who plays Amric in Final Fantasy XIV, is one that I really like. He was also the wizard apprentice dude. Logan, I want to say? No, not Logan. He was Logan's apprentice in Dark Souls 1.
Oh, right.
And he just has a very, very soothing voice, and I like him a lot. Keith David is another one. Like, he does Spawn in, I think, one of the Street Fighter games. And he's also he's been in a ton of stuff, but he was also Dr. Facilier in The Princess and the Frog. And I just thought,
right.
He's got a really, really nice timbre to his voice that
yeah.
I admire.
Didn't realize that was him. He does.
Kumo Kumiko asks, if you could visit anywhere in the world, for the sake of hypothetical, money and time are no object, and someone trustworthy can be there to guide you, speak the language if you need, whatever, where would you go?
Oh, wait.
So all three of us, assuming we had the time and the money, would love to go to Japan. Like, each of us has... whatever. We're all kind of weebs in our own way. We all
for
sort of
yourself.
We
love
maybe.
There's so many cool things to see in Japan. I've been once already, but I would go back again in like a heartbeat. Absolutely no hesitation. The first time I went, though, I almost got my spleen sold in the black market, which is kind of a story unto itself.
Yes.
It's kind of a long one, so I'm not going to have time to talk about it
maybe
here. But basically,
if enough people ask in the comments, maybe he'll divulge, right?
Yeah.
It basically starts with me following a man down an alley and then ends with me running away at midnight in Japan time back to my hotel room.
Terrifying when he told us this story. It's like, oh, God.
Tired, sleepy, jet-lagged Taylor
Yes.
almost got totally messed up. But, I mean, from our point of view, like, other than sort of Japan, I mean, one thing that might be quite nice, I am a sort of a naive bug who lives under a rock, but I quite like, when you see those pictures on the internet of, like, people in, like, these sort of big, serene locations of, like, huge forests with, like, these ruins or, like, ancient temples, like, Buddhist temples and stuff like that, that might be sort of fun to experience. Or, like, when you see those, like, huge sort of waterfalls that are, like, in the middle of nowhere that just are these just amazing sort of just, like, picturesque locations. I'd quite like the idea of, like, just sort of experiencing something like that, going on like a big long trek and sort of seeing something like that. But I'm also a complete Burke, so I wouldn't really know where to start with something like that.
Another place that I think would be nice to go to is like Iceland or Ireland. My parents have been to Iceland and they said it was super beautiful. It was super nice.
Yeah.
Ireland is also kind of the same thing. They've been there, but I haven't. Just lots of rolling countrysides and clean air and everything else, which just kind of sounds like a really nice place to have a vacation. Also sheep.
Sheep.
Yeah, Ireland's another one that I'd like quite like to see. So I've not been, like, apart from like going to the airport when we've come over to see. We've seen Dublin Airport. That's about it. So one for me is Norway or Sweden, that sort of area. I kind of like the sort of Nordic history and everything. I kind of like places that have historic landmarks or like a deep history or sort of lore behind them. So like Rome, Italy is another one for me. Yeah. I'd love to see the Northern Lights as well. That's another one for me because it just looks amazing.
Eyebrows 0408 asks, would you rather be a detective, a prosecutor, a defense attorney, or a weird girl assistant?
Oh, so Santa's not a weird girl assistant.
Well, you say that, but I mean, Maya's pretty weird. I think it might be fun to be a prosecutor. bully the defense, point my finger at people, be like, yeah,
This is
update an autopsy report here and there, you know, have a go at a detective.
Aww. Great, so you're going to have a go at me then, because I quite fancy being a detective. So I like crime shows and, like, sort of, you know, solving mysteries and then, like, you know, how it all pieces together and kind of fits together in the end. And then, yeah, solving mysteries on top of mysteries.
I think I'd like to be a detective as well. I really like kind of putting puzzle pieces together and everything else. And I, could aspire to be a regular dick gumshoe.
But hopefully with a higher salary, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
King of Jacks asks, if you were in the Danganronpa universe, what would your ultimate talent be?
Ooh.
So for me, probably the ultimate collector of Magic the Gathering cards would be one, or the ultimate fox aficionado, and a foxionado, if you will.
I like it. I think for mine, it would be like the ultimate carer. I'm always like looking out for people, and like even when I was like in my young teens, like if my friends went home, I'd be like, now make sure you text me to make sure you're home, okay? I want to know that you're all right.
I think for me, it'd be I'd probably just be a reserve course student.
Oh, no. Ultimate husband.
That's very kind, but I mean, I appreciate that you feel that way. Probably, maybe, I don't know, ultimate biscuit eater.
You do like biscuits.
I do like biscuits. Or ultimate
cookies.
Well, no, I'm more into biscuits than cookies.
I'm saying just
for our American audience.
Yes,
right,
cookies.
Right. Cookies. Yes, not scones. Or perhaps
ultimate Terry's chocolate orange enjoyer.
I didn't even think of that.
Oh, I didn't even think. Yeah,
well, I mean that's it. I was gonna say ultimate tea drinker, but no, ultimate Terry's chocolate orange consumer. Done.
Yes.
David asks, if you could have two characters from different series that you've played on the channel talk to each other, who would they be, and how do you think that conversation would go?
Look at me and Sholmes. The misadventure would be most glorious indeed. Mostly because I think it would probably be Luke like having staged a crime, and then Sholmes trying to figure it out, and then they're trying to outwit each other, because I think that would be amusing.
That would be amazing.
Barack Van Zeeks and Manfred von Karma, just because I feel like it would be fun to see who's the most extra when they're serving on the prosecution. You know, Van Zeeks is throwing his wine glasses, and then every time von Karma opens his mouth, a portal to the deepest reaches of hell opens up, which says, "Objection!"
God.
I know this, they're basically from the same franchise, but probably Sholmes and Gumshoe. Like, I feel like they could probably both riff on the idea that they both do what they can. They sort of have hearts of gold and whatnot, but they, as far as like, actually serving a purpose and whatnot, they tend to kind of be a bit useless as they, you know what I mean? I mean, Gumshoe's useful sometimes, but I feel like Sholmes is almost just like a stepping stone. Like, because he has the idea, but it's always wrong, and you always have to correct it.
Yeah.
And of course, they, neither of them seem to have any money, so they could sort of riff on that.
That's not my fault, pal.
Maybe they could come up with an idea to earn cash between them.
Yeah. Just like busking on the streets, trying to get money.
Oh, with the Stradivarius, yes.
Yeah.
And Gumshoe with his metal detector could add a metronome.
Yeah. Oh god. No, he's just searching for the coins in the sewers. So I know Van Zeeks has been mentioned, but I kind of like the idea of Edgeworth and Van Zeeks just sat having a conversation. Van Zeeks has got out his finest wine, and they're kind of discussing like tactics of how to trip up the defense. Like Edgeworth's like, yeah, you could update the autopsy report at the last minute. And Van Zeeks is like, well, you could get yourself a name like the Reaper and just put the fear of God into everyone, but please note people might die around you. But also I've kind of like the idea of them being like perplexed that like Phoenix and Ryunosuke are so similar, but they don't realize that Ryunosuke is like the ancestor of Phoenix, and they're just so similar, but they just can't work it out. And also to just be like, yes, you also wear a cravat. You have a good sense of style.
You have good taste.
You have good taste, sir.
Yeah.
But the question is Van Zeeks von Karma's ancestor, or is he Edgeworth's ancestor?
Ooh.
Batteray Turan asks, what Ace Attorney game do you plan on doing after the current one? And because this seems appropriate, I've also added on. Doodle Squish also asked, you guys are clearly thinking about playing Apollo Justice at some point. Does that mean perhaps the 3DS games are up for playing too?
Maybe.
So...
Yes!
so to answer both those questions... Well, to answer Doodle Squish, yes. To answer both... So we probably will be doing Apollo Justice next after Great Ace Attorney. That, or we may play Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright first. I'm not quite sure. We haven't really decided. So we'll have to sort of like think about that. But yes, the intention is to play through all of them. Maybe even the investigations games, or at least at the very least the first one, as that does have a genuine English translation. We'll see about the second one. I'm not sure.
The second one hasn't got one yet, has it?
No, it's just a fan translation.
Yeah.
In terms of like actually doing it, we don't really have to worry too much about 3DS emulation and whatnot. I mean, there will be a little bit for Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, but for the other two, Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice, they actually came out on Android.
Yes, they did.
And you can emulate Android on PC quite easily, and so we'll be able to get them in nice, glorious high quality. So that's the intention there, so that should run quite nicely. Daniel Nunez asks, would you consider branching out into other game genres you could voice act over? So this is kind of a tricky one, really, because yes, we would definitely consider it. The real issue is just sort of fitting it around our formula, like with the way that we kind of do things, and also kind of the potential increase in workload. Like we literally said the other day, we had a joke about potentially doing Metal Gear Solid, which would be amazing. But the thing is that really, for the way that we sort of do things, we need it to be a game that has that waits for dialogue, basically. Like so, waits for input for you to continue text. It's difficult. Sorry, go on.
So Sarah and I are huge fans of the Persona series. Like Pete also likes them, but we're super fans. The problem is, though, if you've ever played a Persona game, they're quite long. Persona 5 The Royal is like 135 hours. We would be trying to complete that game over the course of like 5 years.
Yeah. It's
just 5 years.
I mean, we'd have to I don't know, maybe just play through the section. Maybe not record the gameplay sections and just like record the conversations or something.
It'd have to be like sort of the the friend meetups and kind of cut out the battle system.
But it still could end up just being like absolutely ridiculous. Like even just like say if it's like you talk to somebody and then we all have to sort of go, right, we have to like say if Sarah played the game like in a downtime or something and then was like, right, I've got to a guy, we need to speak. So then it's like, right, we all need to get together, record this bit, and then it's like, oh, right, now we're back to gameplay again. So it's like, okay, off we go.
Let's see. If we apply the general formula of 135 hours times 2, that's 270 hours to complete it. There are 52 weeks in a year. So yeah, about 5 years. We would finish Persona 5 The Royal in about 5 years.
So yeah, I mean, so unfortunately it's, it's tricky to kind of like decide, to sort of select games. I mean, and it's also kind of hard enough to get two videos out in a week. Like, I mean, occasionally we'll sort of like put something else out and we'll like, some specials like Murder of Sonic, as we mentioned, but really visual novels are kind of work best because of that whole waiting for dialogue to continue. You're like waiting for you to press a button, because again, otherwise it relies on like heavy editing and stuff. And that's another thing we just sort of can't, we don't really have time to do.
The difficulty is, sort of thinking with Persona, Twitch streaming's a thing, but also we have a time difference between where we both live.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. It's like, it's probably about 10 o'clock, maybe, by the time we sort of get together in the week, and it's like, ooh.
We're like 5 hours apart, and so it gets really tricky. So yeah, it's difficult. Zoidberg74-2 asks, do you plan on playing Project Eden's Garden when all is said and done? And Jinik asks, have you guys considered playing the Zero Escape games? So, we didn't know anything about Eden's Garden.
No.
But looking at it, we think it looks interesting and faithfully, it looks like a faithful representation of the Danganronpa sort of franchise, like a faithful fan game. So it is intriguing. It looks like it's quite well done, which is nice.
Yeah, it does look like a promising one.
Yeah, it seems interesting. So we're kind of excited to have a look into that one. As for the Zero Escape series, that's actually one that I've kind of had on the back burner for a bit to sort of potentially sort of bring up. But we'll have to sort of see about that because obviously we're potentially going to be playing Danganronpa V3 soon.
Yeah.
We're not sure if there's going to be like a palate cleanser between that or not yet, but like there might be. So it'll probably be after that. So I mean, you're looking at like a year. So
If not longer. I mean,
So-
I don't know how long V3 is.
Like-
so
Obviously, if
No,
we
go.
obviously if we didn't have to work full time or whatever, we could potentially get more content out. But trying to balance it currently with our full-time jobs, it's just we would love to play more. Like again, if I could wave a magic wand and then tomorrow this was my full-time job, that'd be amazing.
That would be
But
cool.
Until such time as someone says bibbity bobbity boo and does the thing, we kind of have to do what time allows.
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, it's all work and sadly no play.
Well, a little bit of play.
A little
There
bit
is.
of disillusioned play.
There is. Okay, not enough time to do the thing that we'd love to do.
But so that's kind of that for now. I guess we'll see.
Yes.
But the intention is to potentially do it. Yes.
Yes.
And finally, Gokurono 005 asks, "What kind of stuff are you looking forward to playing or producing on this channel?"
I want to do the Professor Layton versus Phoenix, right? I know we've mentioned it. But I want to do it.
It is good. It is good. I would like to as well. I'd like for Taylor to experience that. I mean, so I think it goes without saying, the ongoing Ace Attorney stuff. Like, we are not branching away from Ace Attorney anytime
Nope.
soon. There are plenty of those for us to do, and we love Ace Attorney. So we will be playing through more of those.
Hell, maybe there might be a new one by the time we've got to the end.
Yes, who knows? So it might be even longer.
Would be nice.
Sorry, guys. Also,
We're sorry.
like Professor Layton might be fun to do. Maybe. We'll sort of see how that goes. It's a similar kind of thing, maybe. So that might be quite fun.
Not very good at the puzzles on the old Professor Layton,
Though-
I will admit.
Though there are, but well, it's the three of us. I'm sure the three of us together will manage to do
I
it.
think,
And if
I think
not,
probably two of you.
if not, I'm sure we will provide entertainment with our fumbling.
Yes, no doubt.
But yeah, there's quite a few Ace Attorneys and quite a few Professor Laytons to get through, so we'll have to
Just
see.
a few.
Deltarune might be quite a fun one to do.
Yes.
Yeah, Taylor's kind of excited. about that one, aren't you?
Yeah. So we'll have to sort of see. Though you have seen how long it takes for us to get through things. So I mean, although another one that we did see that was kind of by the guy who did Danganronpa is Raincoat that's coming out
Yes.
fairly soon. It's like
End of June?
I think
End
so.
of this month, isn't
like
it?
a Switch exclusive. We'll have to see when this video goes up, but
Yeah,
it's supposed to be like a Switch exclusive. So we'll have to kind of see about like sort of streaming and Let's Play rules and see if Atlas are okay with it or whatnot, or if it's going to be like Nintendo strike us down. But that could be like a fun one potentially. It's got like a weird cast of characters and whatnot. So yeah, so that could be quite fun. But as I said before, we've got a lot of Ace Attorney to get through, and
have.
Danganronpa V3, if it's got anything on Danganronpa 2, is probably gonna take us another year. So
More than a year. We're on episode 69. Nice.
Nice.
Well,
we're definitely getting there.
Yeah, there was Paranormal Site came up. That looks quite fun as well.
and Ghost Trick too.
Ghost Trick, yeah.
Yes, another Shutakumi game.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be quite good. We're kind of, we're sort of undecided about stuff after Danganronpa and Ace Attorney, to be absolutely honest, but it's just been, again, about sort of just trying to find something that fits. It's
Yeah.
like, I really enjoyed the anime for Steins Gate, for example. And that was
Yes.
supposed to be quite a good visual novel, but then it's like, it's just Okabe. It's just Rintaro Okabe just talking to himself like for hours and hours and hours. Like we did a test sort of play together, and it was just only one person talking for absolutely ages.
Like the odd random character came in for about 30 seconds, and then it was Okabe again.
So yeah, we have to do like a bit of playing around to try and figure out like which games are appropriate.
Yes.
But we'll have to see.
But with that, we're sadly out of time.
Well, we're over time. We're
over
over what we intended to do. But yes, as Sarah said, I think with that, we are done.
We are done.
The ordeal is over. You finally got your answers.
I hope
and
they
you
were
can
satisfactory.
You can do with them what you will.
Yes. I just want to take this time to say thank you to everyone for submitting your questions.
Absolutely.
Taking the time to do that, and also to say thank you for all of your guys' support as well. Like, we're over the 1,000 subscribers mark now, which is kind of
holy fuck, right? And
so but we couldn't have done it without you guys.
No.
So thank you so much.
And thank you for your patience in waiting for this video.
Yeah.
Yes.
'Cause, it's been a little bit delayed.
Little bit over.
It must be said. But no. Like, thank you. As Sarah said, I can only echo that. Thank you very much for your support.
It's really been a joy and a pleasure for us to kind of make this content and show it to you guys. And so, as long as you all keep enjoying it, we're going to keep putting it out there.
Keep on trucking.
Yes.
But until next time, we'll catch you in the usual schedule.
Yes. See you in the next one, everyone.
And remember, everyone, have a great weekend.